economic inactivity. We're joining up employment and health support, expanding individual placement support to reach an additional 140,000 people with mental health problems, and delivering new work-well services, which includes GPs referring patients to employment advisors and other work-related support, like the brilliant service in the Junction Medical Practice in North London that we visited recently. But we will go much further and faster to tackle this issue. To meet the scale of the challenge, we will devolve new funding, new powers and new responsibilities to tackle economic inactivity to mayors and local areas, because local leaders know their communities best. We'll support all areas in England to produce local Get Britain working plans, joining up work, health and skills support. Today, I'm announcing 8 trailblazer areas backed by £125 million of additional funding in South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, the North East, Greater Manchester, Wales, York and North Yorkshire, and 2 Greater London areas. In 3 of these areas, South and West Yorkshire and the North East, this will include dedicated input and £45 million of funding for local NHS integrated care systems. And we're funding a new supported employment programme called Connect to Work, backed by £115 million of initial funding for next year. This will be included in the integrated settlements of combined authorities, starting with Greater Manchester and the West Midlands. Because employers have such an important role to play in helping get people into work and, crucially, to stay in work, I can today announce a new independent Keep Britain Working review, looking at the role of UK employers and government in tackling health-related inactivity and creating healthy workplaces. This will be led by the former chair of John Lewis, Sir Charlie Mayfield, and it will report in the autumn. And finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I can tell the House we will bring forward a green paper with our own proposals on reforming the health and disability benefits system, so disabled people and those with health conditions have the same rights as everybody else, including the right to work. So we treat disabled people with dignity and respect, and so we shift the focus to prevention and respond to the complex and fluctuating nature of today's health conditions. We'll work closely with disabled people and their organisations as we develop our proposals, which we will publish in the spring. Madam Deputy Speaker, this white paper starts to turn the corner on the last 14 years, putting forward the real reforms we need to get more people into work and on at work, to give young people the very best start in life, and to ensure our employment and social security system understand this fundamental issue, that a healthy nation and a healthy economy are 2 sides of the same coin. This is how we get Britain working again. It's how we get Britain growing again. And I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Secretary of State Helen Whately.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Secretary of State for advance sight of her statement. The Conservatives are the party of work and aspiration. In the decade after we took over from Labour, we drove down unemployment.
The Shadow Secretary of State.
In the decade after we took over from Labour, we drove down unemployment and economic inactivity year after year, including youth unemployment, down by 400,000 after the mess we inherited from the last Labour government. During the pandemic, we took unprecedented action to protect jobs and livelihoods. But since the pandemic, we've faced a new and difficult challenge in this country: rising economic inactivity, particularly among young people. In government, we were tackling this. I know that because as Health Minister, I was working on it. Our Work Well pilots. I'm delighted that the Right Honourable Lady and the Health Secretary visited one of our Work Well pilots just the other day. And on our Fit Note reforms, our youth offer, which helped 1 million young people, and our universal support scheme, which I now hear the Secretary of State has quietly rebranded as her own Connect to Work scheme.
You're welcome.
But far from being cross that the government is pinching our ideas, I welcome the Right Honourable Lady taking our work forwards, and that she's making the right noises about how important this is to fix. Economic inactivity is a big problem for our economy, and for each and every individual who risks being written off to a life on benefits. Knowing that, I am disappointed in the substance of what she is announcing today, because far from matching her rhetoric, this appears to be little more than a pot of money for local councils, some disparaging language about the work of job centres, and a consultation which will be launched in the spring. Given that they have had 14 years to prepare for this moment, is that it?
14 years.
Where are the reforms to benefits which will actually make material savings to the taxpayer, like the 12 billion we committed to save in our manifesto? Where are the reforms to fit notes, which we had handed over all ready to go? Where is her plan for reforming the workplace capability assessment? Right. She has banked the 3 billion of savings from our plan, but failed to set out her own. And her big announcement on making benefits for young people conditional, did she forget that they already are? The fact is, the Secretary of State has dodged the tough decisions. Every day she kicks the can down the road, costs the taxpayer millions of pounds, at this rate rising to 100 billion on sickness benefits by the end of this Parliament. Money that instead they are taking from farmers, from pensioners, from businesses, Madam Deputy Speaker. But to get people off benefits, you need jobs for them to go into. The very jobs businesses are saying, since the budget, they will no longer be hiring for. So while the Right Honourable Lady tries to get people into work, her Chancellor is busy destroying jobs. 50,000 jobs lost from her first budget alone. I put it to the Right Honourable Lady that if she wants to get more 18-year-olds into work, she should have a word with her Chancellor, who has made it so that from April it will cost £5,000 more for a business to employ them. And her Business Secretary, whose employment rights bill will, according to their own impact assessment, make it less likely for employers to take on young people. The government cannot solve this problem on their own. Businesses are the engine of our economy that create jobs for people to do. And it is telling, Madam Deputy Speaker, that I can't see a single business represented on their new Labour Market Advisory Board. I did hear the Right Honourable Lady talk about some new partnerships. But this announcement is such a song and dance about so little, I feel sure she will qualify for one of her own Royal Shakespeare Company apprenticeships. She's kicked the can so far down the road that her new partner, the Premier League, is sure to be on the phone by the end of the day. Madam Deputy Speaker, can I for a moment cut through the word soup of the announcement? It is time for the Right Honourable Lady to tell the House some facts. How many people will this help into work, and by when? What is the total she is saving the taxpayer? When will she reach her 80% employment target? What return on investment is she expecting from these plans? How will she measure her success or failure? Because this is so far from the bold grasping of the nettle that she is making it out to be, and that this country needs for our economy, for taxpayers, and for the millions of people missing out on the purpose and freedom that work brings. This is simply not good enough.
Secretary of State.
May I gently say to the Honourable Lady, who I personally like and have a great deal of time for, the only people who dodge difficult decisions on welfare are the party opposite. And the facts speak for themselves. By the end of this Parliament, the OBR says 420,000 more people will be on health-related universal credit benefits. rising from a third now to a half at the end of the Parliament. That's her government's legacy. 1 in 8 of all of our young people are now not in education, employment or training. We have seen a doubling of the number of those young people out of work due to long-term sickness, and a doubling of those young people out of work because of mental health problems. After 14 years in government, who does she actually think is responsible for that? And I'm afraid the truth is now staring her in the face. The Conservatives are now the party of welfare, and Labour is the party of work. She talks about British businesses. I mean, I know only too well the pressures many businesses face, and we have spoken to the CBI, the Federation of Small Businesses, the British Chamber of Commerce, and they are really keen to work with us on our proposals. They know their members have hundreds of thousands of vacancies they need to fill, 1 in 3 of which because of skills gaps. They know that 300,000 people every single year fall out of work due to a health condition, and that they need support to try and tackle that problem. I believe that the DWP and job centres should serve businesses' needs and aspirations, not be the place of last resort, which is precisely what our reforms will deliver. And I would finally just say this. The biggest challenge we face today is the growing number of people out of work or at risk of falling out of work due to health problems or a disability. And our entire employment and benefit system are simply not geared up to deal with this. We will take examples of good practice from wherever we find them, but we have got to go much further, much further. We need big reforms, not easy slogans that say people just felt a bit too bluesy to work, that do nothing to help people get to grips with the real issues in their lives. We are facing up to our responsibilities and the difficult decisions necessary to get Britain working again. It's time she and her party opposite did the same.
Chair of the Work and Pensions Select Committee, Debbie Abrahamson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I warmly welcome my right honourable friend's statement, and I look forward to reading the white paper later, and particularly in terms of the cross-departmental approach that she's taking with colleagues. I think this is absolutely essential and a breath of fresh air, particularly in relation to tackling the root causes of economic inactivity, which she's explained is around predominantly ill health. In addition to tackling the regional inequalities in employment, she'll be aware that there's also a 30% disability employment gap, with 2.25 million disabled people who want to work and who are able to work. So how will she be specifically tackling this real injustice? We know that disabled people are more likely to be living in poverty than other groups. What are her specific plans in this regard?
I thank my honourable friend for that important question. Myself and the Minister for Social Security are working really hard to tear down those barriers to disabled people being able to get work and get in work. We are taking action across government, including reporting on the disability employment gap. We need to tackle the long waits for access to work, the adaptations and other support that people need. But I think we also need to have some brilliant programs that we're already seeing, supported employment programs for people with autism and learning difficulties that I and my right honourable friend, the Health Secretary, have recently visited in our own NHS trusts, which really provide a pathway to work with the right help and support. There's much more we need to do, and I look forward to discussing these issues with her and other members of the committee.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson, Jess Brown-Fuller.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The UK was the only economy to see employment rates fall over the last 5 years under the Conservatives, leaving a legacy of wrecked apprenticeships, mental health services not fit for purpose, and leaving millions on waiting lists unable to work, and those with caring responsibilities staying at home to provide care for their loved ones because of a failure in our social care system. The Liberal Democrats welcome steps to improve access to skills, training and education, And I would like to personally praise the work of FedCap and Maximus UK, who are doing just that in Chichester, working in conjunction with the job centres, with those who have had long periods of economic inactivity or have additional challenges when finding work. But the insecurity and short-term nature of government funding for those projects means that both organisations had to pause their referrals this year while they waited for the government to confirm their continued funding. I'm sure the Secretary of State agrees with me that to get people back into work, the organisations trying to do that already need more security from the government. And when it comes to tackling the mental health crisis, it is not enough to reverse the Conservatives' lack of action. The government must be proactive in improving mental health services, and I invite the Secretary of State to take the proactive ideas the Liberal Democrats laid out in our general election manifesto, such as catching more mental health conditions early on by offering mental health MOTs, and also the introduction of mental health hubs in every community to deliver an ease of access to walk-in services and support. And it is abundantly clear that ensuring people get the NHS treatment they need is critical to getting back to work. The NHS cannot tackle their long waiting lists unless the government gets serious about fixing the crisis in social care. We've heard lots of words from the government on social care, but little action, with the increase in social care budget totally eroded by the national insurance contribution rise. Does the Secretary of State agree with me that a healthy society is a productive society, and fixing the health and social care crisis will get our country back to work?
I thank the Honourable Lady for her question, and yes, I do agree that we've got to tackle the root causes of the problem here and have an NHS and social care system that is fit for purpose. I think we have put forward our commitments around mental health support in every school and every community. We know many mental health problems start before someone turns 18, so we've got to try and prevent those problems happening in the first place. But there's much, much more we need to do. We are starting to see fantastic NHS services which provide employment advice as part of care. And that is because the evidence shows that if you're in good work, that is good for your mental health, a sense of purpose and structure. My Right Honourable friend, the Health Secretary, is pushing this to be available in all parts of the country. I am under no illusions about the scale of the challenge. Only 3% of people who are economically inactive get back to work in any given year. So we've got to prevent the problems from happening in the first place, as well as doing more to help those people into work.
Neil Coyle.
Speaker, under the last government, DWP faced legal action for its unlawful treatment of disabled people. How will this white paper, this positive vision, rebuild trust and better support disabled people going forward?
This government believes that disabled people have the same rights as everybody else, including the right to work. And our mission is to break down those barriers. Many disabled people want to work if they could get the right help and support and a job that fits their needs and concerns with greater flexibility. I think this is a really important challenge. I don't blame disabled people often for being frightened and worried when they hear about these discussions after what's happened over the past 14 years. But we will work with disabled people and the organisations that represent them to get this right, to get the world of work, the employment support system, and a better functioning system of disability benefits. This is a really big challenge for our country, but I think with these proposals we're taking an important step forward.
John Glenn.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the ambition of the Secretary of State in many of the areas she set out this afternoon, particularly the Keep Britain Working initiative. I think we have got to, as a Parliament, come to terms with the obesity and mental health crises that we have, and therefore I welcome what she's doing with the Secretary of State for Health. But could I bring to her attention the work of South Wilts MenCap? Recently I've met with Robin Clifford, and over 14 years I've seen the work that they do as a group of trustees with adult learning disabled, a special group of individuals in my constituency. And I welcome the opportunity perhaps to meet with the member for East Ham to look at programmes that could be started or pilots that could be undertaken to get these learning disabled into meaningful activity where they can make some contribution through paid work.
I thank the honourable gentleman for that very important contribution. I and my colleague, the Minister for Social Security and Disability, would indeed be very keen to hear more about that work. I recently visited a supported employment programme run by my local health service for young people with autism and severe learning difficulties. It was a year-long supported internship programme. They had to start by actually talking to the parents about what the young person could do, not just what they couldn't do. They had to actually literally physically get on the bus to get them to work. They tried 3 different jobs around the hospital to find the one that best matched their needs. And every single young person after that year was given a paid job. It's so successful, we're expanding it to the local university and to one of Leicester's biggest hotel chains. These changes are possible, and I'm very keen to work with him in his area to make sure we give those opportunities.
Jill German. Speaker.
I warmly welcome my right honourable friend's statement today, and I do believe that these reforms will be transformative, and it's not before time. In my constituency of Clwyd North, we've long recognised the gaps that exist in the system, and our local authorities have put in place the brilliant Working Denbighshire programme and also Conwy Employment Hub that really drills down into what local people need and take them on a pathway into work. So does the Secretary of State agree with me that devolving power and crucially funding in the way that she's set out is absolutely key to achieving the best results we can for the local people in their own area?
This is a major change in our approach. Local areas know best their needs and the different organisations that can help achieve the goals. I know my city, my economic inactivity is predominantly driven by people with caring responsibilities. Other parts of the country, it's more physical health or mental health problems, and we need different things in different parts of the country. I think that's the best way to get the best results. It's a big change for the Department for Work and Pensions to be a much more localised service and to be much more joined up with other parts of government, both nationally and locally. But that's the way we get the change that we deliver.
Lewis Cocking.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Businesses in my constituency of Broxbourne are really worried and are putting off investing and creating jobs because of the party's opposite budget, in particular the increase in regulations and the national insurance increase. How does she plan to get everyone, how does the Minister plan to get everyone back to work who should be in work if there are no jobs that exist out there?
I do understand the pressures that many businesses are under. You know, I think that the budget was trying to deal with a very difficult issue, which is if you're spending more than you earn and your public finances aren't working, you've got to deal with that. Anyone who runs a business knows that you've got to get the finances right. But I think many organisations do recognise that they need to recruit more people with the skills they need that meet their particular concerns. They are worried about the increasing number of health conditions, people leaving work because of that. I'm determined to work with and to serve businesses locally, and I'd be very happy to meet with him to talk about the specific needs of businesses in his constituents.
David Pinto-Dushinsky.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to warmly welcome the White Paper. I think it's a huge step forward. Mental health challenges have been the biggest single driver of rising inactivity among the young. And we also we know that mental health can be hugely helped by work. One study shows that even just 8 hours of work a week will reduce risk of depression and anxiety by up to 30%. Given that, what will the Secretary of State do to help support those at risk from mental health issues get back to work?
Thank my honourable friend for that question. I've already talked about what we aim to do to prevent mental health problems from happening in the first place with more mental health support in schools and in the community. What I really see this as is a really fundamental overhaul of the way DWP and the NHS work together, that we start to see support into the right jobs for the right people with mental health problems as part of what the NHS does, putting those employment advisors into the NHS, the individual placement and support service, which did begin under the last government through the NHS, the results have been quite phenomenal. 40% of people in work after 5 years, and their use of the health service, their number of relapses and days they spend in hospital, reduced to better for work, better for mental health. That requires a big change in the way we work, but myself and my right honourable friend, the Health Secretary, are determined to make that happen.
Kirsty Blackman.
Madam Deputy Speaker, many disabled or ill people were terrified by the Tories' proposals to cut £3 billion from sickness benefit. Given that Labour are continuing along this cut, will the Secretary of State today promise to sign up to the principle of nothing about us without us and ensure that disabled people, those with ill health and those with lived experience of these systems are round the table making the decisions on how this moves forward?
I've always been a big champion when I worked in social care of working in partnership with people to get the right decisions right first time. And I think that's really important, which is why myself and the Minister for Social Security and Disability are absolutely clear that we will work with disabled people in the organisations to get this system right. But I want to be really, really clear here. The system isn't working. You have to wait weeks on end to get an assessment. They're often overturned at tribunals. We don't do enough to prevent people from falling out of the workplace. 90% of people who get back into work after a bout of sickness do so within the first year. But we don't use that opportunity to provide the help and support that they need. We do need change. I understand how worried people are when they hear about change, but they themselves, I think, would also say the change needs to happen, and we're determined to put that in place.
Joanna Baxter.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I warmly welcome the statement by my right honourable friend today, because giving people the opportunity to get on in life and have dignity and good work is at the heart of what drove me to this place. Does the Secretary of State agree with me that helping people into work in Paisley and Renfrewshire South is about getting the economy growing again, as well as putting more money into people's pockets? And can she say a little bit more about the discussions she's had with the Scottish Government to ensure that they will play their full part in making sure this works?
We're absolutely determined to get more people into better paid jobs in every part of the country. That is the key to improving people's living standards and to getting the economy growing again. Our new Jobs and Careers Service will look different in Scotland because the Scottish Government is responsible for running the careers service there, but we are already in discussions about how we make sure our plans meet the specific needs of people in Scotland, including in her constituency, and I look forward to receiving her ideas and suggestions, as I know she will always provide.
Richard Holden.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker. I want the Secretary of State to succeed. I want her to be part of the first Labour majority government ever to leave office with employment higher than when it started. I had hoped today to hear a little bit more about reform rather than just a review, but it is a welcome step in the right direction. What businesses in Basildon and Billericay have been telling me is that while I'm sure they'll welcome some of the schemes, and I'm sure some of those schemes will go on to do good things, they are absolutely terrified by both the taxes coming through national insurance and the hit on them through business rates as well. And with the OBR saying there's going to be at least 50,000 jobs a year going because of those changes, where are the people that she's hoping to get off benefits and into work going to find that employment?
Secretary of State.
Well, as I've said to other honourable members here, I am really keen to talk to businesses in his constituency and right across the country about the challenges that they face. We did take a decision when we got into office that we couldn't continue with the fantasy economics, that you can't spend more than you earn, that we have to invest in the long-term physical infrastructure of the country, but also in our people, who are our best assets. So we've got to get the NHS back on its feet. I know the issues that businesses face, but they are also thinking about the longer term, the vacancies, how on earth they get the skills they need that are particular to their own business in that area. And I'm very, very happy to talk to the honourable gentleman about that if he would like.
Clive Efford.
Speaker, I welcome the statement from my right honourable friend. and particularly the coaches and assistants for young people getting into work. But what she describes seems to fit neatly with what the government is proposing in terms of the green economy and highly skilled, well-paid jobs. Can she say something about how the training for those jobs will play a part in getting those people from unemployment into work?
My honourable friend hits the nail on the head. The Get Britain Working white paper is part of a much wider series of reforms the government is making to create more good jobs in every part of the country, including in green energy and through our modern industrial strategy, and our plans to make work pay through the New Deal for working people. Yesterday, I was at a college actually in Peterborough, where they are looking at how they upskill young people to get the clean, green energy jobs of the future. That needs to happen in every part of the country, because we want the new jobs that we are creating to be available to those who need them most. And that is something that we haven't really managed to fit together before. Getting the DWP and our Get Britain Working plans underpinning our local growth plans. That is a big change, but something we have to deliver to make sure that everybody in this country benefits from the jobs we are creating in future.
Christine Jardine. Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I welcome much of what the Secretary of State has said, and I'm delighted that she's assured us that there's going to be discussions with the Scottish Government about plans for Scotland. But throughout the past 2 or 3 years, I've had businesses in my constituency tell me that they cannot get people to work for them. They are concerned about that, so this strategy will be welcome. But does the Secretary of State appreciate that many of us see a contradiction in this policy and the national insurance changes? Because a major employer in my constituency of Edinburgh West tells me it's going to cost them £250,000 extra a year, and they won't be taking on seasonal workers because they can't afford it. So how does that damaging policy for business go alongside trying to encourage more people back out to work?
Right.
I think businesses, of course they face these pressures, but I think many businesses also understand you have to actually have a government that is looking at the fundamentals. And we did face a problem with the public finances when we got into government. And my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, took a decision that the only way we can sort out the country for the long term is to get the public finances back on a more sustainable footing. And I would also say to her, businesses that I go and meet, including Tesco in my own constituency, yes, they did raise concerns with me, but they've also said they really want to get more young people into work who have mental health problems. They're doing a brilliant partnership with the King's Trust on this to get them into work and help them stay in work, because they know the key to their future is to get those skills so they can grow their business and really make the changes that this country needs.
Andy MacDonald.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I thank my right honourable friend for her statement. My constituents in Middlesbrough and Thornaby East will very much welcome the additional funding for young people in the Tees Valley and the modernising of the job centres to better assist our wonderful job centre staff. But can the Minister say something about how this is going to dovetail with the Employment Rights Bill and ensure that young people are offered quality employment and training opportunities and not pressured into accepting inadequate and insecure zero-hour job offers? And can the Minister also say something about how the Government and members will be able to monitor and evaluate the delivery of the Youth Trailblazer programme by combined mayoral authorities?
My honourable friend will know that our plan to make work pay, to bring in those day one employment rights, end exploitative zero-hours contracts, improve flexibility at work, are all the things that we need to make sure there are good quality job options out there for young people. And I would say to him on the point about combined authorities, there will be new leadership roles for mayors and combined authorities, but also clear accountability for delivering on the outcomes we want to see, which is that every young person has an opportunity to earn or learn, and we will make sure that happens.
Sir Desmond Swain.
To ensure that if you can work, you must work, will she familiarise herself with the works of Jeremy Bentham?
if I have time.
Alan Gemmell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We've heard much about the failures of the party opposite, but after 17 years of SNP failures, young people in Central Ayrshire are looking to this government for the opportunities of a good job. Can my right honourable friend say what more she's going to do to help young people in Central Ayrshire and across Scotland from today's announcement?
It is hugely important that we deliver these new opportunities in every part of the country. That includes young people and people of all ages in Scotland. We will work with the Scottish Government to deliver this, but also, really importantly, with local councils who have a huge role to play here. Our job centres really need to change. They need to meet the needs of employers and future employees in every part of the country. I look forward to working with my honourable friend to get his ideas about what will work best, and perhaps we could do a joint visit to his job centre.
Wendy Chamberlain.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's all very well as talking about Department from Work, but one of the challenges often is that we fail those in employment who are still interacting with the benefit system. I've got a number of constituents in North East Fife who are paid on a 4-weekly basis, but also claim universal credit, which means 1 month a year they lose their universal credit. And being told simply to try and put money aside to bridge that gap isn't, I don't think, a professional way for us to support those people. I know it's been an ongoing challenge, but is the consultation going to look at issues such as these?
The Honourable Lady raises a really important point, and we have a clear manifesto commitment to review universal credit, to tackle poverty and to make work pay. That issue has been raised a lot with me and my right honourable friend, the Minister for Social Security and Disability, and I'm sure it's something that he will be looking closely at, because we need our benefit system to match the reality of people's working lives today. So that's a very important point she's raised.
Yuan Yang.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I very much commend the Minister's youth guarantee. In my constituency of Early and Woodley, there are many businesses who've invested in the high-tech industries of the future. However, I do speak to young people and their families who are concerned about getting jobs at the first rung of the ladder in the present day. There'll be 3,000 undergraduates graduating from the University of Reading this year, a further 3,000 people turning 18 in my constituency, and ask the Minister what she and her department can do for those young people to ensure that local jobs and skills training opportunities match the economic advantages of the area that they're from.
I personally believe that we actually need to start much younger than 18 with good work experience and careers advice in schools. I've certainly seen that in my own constituency, whereas as young as in primary schools, teachers have been bringing in people from different jobs, in different professions, to open children's eyes and their minds to the possibility of the world of work that's out there. This is why I think we need to bring together everything that's happening in our schools, our colleges, and the world of work. That is the way that we open up possibilities for young people in future. The Youth Guarantee, I hope, in local areas will do precisely that and provide the opportunities that her young constituents need and deserve.
Jim Allister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I note that the white paper is called Get Britain Working Again, not Get the United Kingdom Working Again. Now, I appreciate there are devolution issues, but when I listen to her statement, I find it is very England-only orientated. There are references to national partnerships, but where does this fit within the matrix of getting the United Kingdom working again? And will there be Barnett consequentials, and then will it be left up to the sometimes failing devolved institutions?
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. Actually, Northern Ireland has one of the highest rates of economic inactivity in the United Kingdom, and that is a real concern, I'm sure, for him and for me. I've already spoken to the minister responsible, and I think there are things that we could look at that are happening in Northern Ireland to see whether there are lessons that could be learned for elsewhere in the country. We will always work closely with the devolved administrations to make sure our plans match people's needs in every part of the country, because that's what his constituents and the country as a whole deserve.
John McDonnell.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the picture's opposite. It looks like the Conservative Party have adopted a policy of a 3 or 2 day week to tackle the unemployment rate. Can I refer to my register of interest as chair of the PCS Parliamentary Group? From the tone and the statement today, my understanding of the government's position is an acknowledgement that it will be support, not sanctions, that will tackle this issue overall. And that support will come from new employment centres within our constituencies, staffed by fully trained, motivated and well-paid staff at SELC. The Secretary of State has mentioned meeting businesses and with mayors. Could I ask also that she meets with the trade unions, and we'd welcome a meeting with her from the PCS Parliamentary Group to talk through the rollout of this particular programme, which will benefit both the staff themselves and, in addition to that, the recipients of their services.
I thank my right honourable friend for his question. I think our 16,000 work coaches and other frontline job centre staff are our biggest asset. Some of them have worked for the DWP for 25, 30 years because they care about their communities. I think they have been stifled by the system that's had this sort of overwhelming focus on monitoring and administering benefits. They know what their local areas want and need. I spoke to the head of the TUC yesterday about our plans, and I'm sure myself or the Minister for Employment will be very, very happy to meet the PCS to talk about how we take these plans forward.
Sarah Dyke. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I thank the Minister for this statement. 13% of jobs in Somerset are in manufacturing, many in the defence industry, such as Thales in Templecombe, RNAS Yeovilton, in my constituency in Leonardo, nearby. The manufacturing industry contributes £1.87 billion to our local economy, which is more than any other single industry. However, data shows that women represent only 30% of the STEM workforce. So does the Secretary of State agree with me that we should be making more targeted interventions to support more women into this important industry?
100%. I could not agree with the Honourable Lady more. We need to get more women into manufacturing, engineering, all those STEM subjects. And indeed, I met many apprentices yesterday on a visit to Peterborough College, young women who said, this is for me, more women need to do this. It's a great job, a great career, great pay, 100%.
Conor Rand.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and it's wonderful to hear from our right honourable friend that Greater Manchester will be one of the trailblazer areas for these vital reforms. But when I speak to businesses in Altrincham and Sale West, they tell me that the greatest challenge they face is recruiting people to fill vacancies. So can the Secretary of State outline a little further how these plans will ensure that businesses can recruit the skilled staff that they need and give young people in my constituency great opportunities in the process?
I think this is really one of the biggest challenges many employers face, and the reason why many are so keen on apprentices, as I was told yesterday, is we can, mould young people with the specific skills that their company needs. I think that there's two things here. One is that we are reforming the apprenticeship levy into a new growth and skills levy, so businesses can have much more flexibility in how they use that. But also, I think there's a lot of young people who have missed out on those basic skills, maths and English GCSE, who can't even get onto an apprenticeship. So we need that training or those foundation apprenticeships, which is a key part of the changes that we want to make and that we want to spread through our youth guarantee, including across Greater Manchester.
Anne Davies.
Diolch, Madam Dirprwy Llefarydd. The Workways team, which is run by Carmarthenshire County Council in my constituency Caerfyrddin, do impressive work in facilitating access to critical skills and give career opportunities to people who are out of work. They receive funding through the Shared Prosperity Fund, which of course is coming on is due to an end. Can the Minister tell me how such vital organisations in Wales will benefit from her department's plans? Diolch.
I think the whole point of devolving responsibility and accountability to mayors and local leaders is precisely because they will know best the organisations that they need to involve in tackling economic inactivity, in delivering the youth guarantee, and in really embedding job centres into local communities. That is precisely why we're making these changes. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund, there is an additional £900 million for 25-26. That is a key part of this that we need to join up, but I'm very happy if she writes to me with information so I can look at that in more detail.
Nadia Whittam.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Secretary of State for her statement. Barriers to employment and a lack of workplace support for disabled people remain persistent challenges, as well as inadequate social security payments for everyone, regardless of employment status. Can my right honourable friend reassure disabled people that the government's new support measures will not be conditional on being able to work, and that no one will be sanctioned for non-attendance at medical appointments?
I mean, I think sanctioning people because they go to the NHS to get themselves as fit and healthy as possible is completely the wrong approach. I understand why disabled people, when they hear talk about helping people into work or reforms to sickness and disability benefits, why they're worried because of what happened over the last 14 years. We are determined to break down those barriers to work. I think many disabled people, given the right help and support and the right flexibility to work, could work and want to work. That's what we are focused on, and that's what we're determined to deliver.
Bobby Dean.
Deputy Speaker. In Carshalton and Wallington, we have got a fantastic local social enterprise that has been helping adults with disabilities back into work. They've even recently set up a cafe which is entirely run by adults with learning disabilities. How does the department plan to take evidence from innovative organisations like this? And will she meet with the organisation to find out about the work they've been doing?
The reason why I'm so passionate about devolving responsibility and accountability to local areas is that it is precisely in order to engage the organisations he's talking about. I mean, I know the different organisations in Leicester. I don't in his constituency. So that's why I believe we have to have a much more localised system. And if he'd like to write to me with details, I'd be very keen to look at them.
Claire Hughes.
Speaker, can I thank my honourable friend for her statement? Measures such as the Young Person's Guarantee, which are already developing and working successfully in Wales, are really welcome. And on that note, could the Secretary of State perhaps outline a little bit further how she will work with the Welsh Government to deliver on this plan to make work pay?
Secretary of State. As my honourable friend said, there's already a Young Person's Guarantee in Wales. The job centre reforms will look different in Wales because the Welsh Government is responsible for the career service, but we really do want to work with them and employers to really overhaul the approach that they have, to unleash the ideas of our work coaches, to free up their time to focus on those who need help most, to make sure our job centres become the first port of call, not the last port of call, to recruit their next star employee, and so that they are much more joined up with local skills support, health support. We will be having those conversations with the Welsh Government, and I'd be really keen to get her input too.
Alison Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituent, Diana, has a daughter who has autism and lives independently with some low-level support. She has previously had a part-time role whilst living in Bath with help from an employment support job coach, and she wishes to do the same, having now moved to my constituency of Mid-Sussex. However, she has found this much harder since moving and has yet to find similar support in Sussex. How is the Minister going to tackle the postcode lottery that exists for those in need of extra support to get into employment?
Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that she hasn't had the same levels of support that she previously had. It's quite clear that with the right support, she is able to engage with the world of work as well as live an independent life, which is what she wants. Our reforms are intended to make sure that that support is available everywhere. If she would like to forward details of that, I'd be very happy to take a look.
Richard Bergen.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And it's vital that people are supported into fulfilling well-paid work so they can fulfil their potential. The Secretary of State rightly mentions the importance that she's putting upon discussing with disabled people and disabled people's groups these changes and reforms. Can I ask the Secretary of State, as part of those discussions, to ask disabled people and disabled people's groups about the work capability assessment? Because in my constituency surgery in Leeds, so many people come who feel degraded, demeaned by the work capability assessment tests, and actually so many of those decisions turn out to be wrong and are successfully appealed later.
My honourable friend will know that that is why our manifesto, on which we were all elected, said that we would reform or replace the work capability assessment. People wait for both for that and for PIP for between 14 and 18 weeks on average to get an assessment. Around 70% of decisions on WCA and PIP can be overturned at tribunal. We need a system that gets the right decision right first time, because that, I think, is what disabled people need, and it is what they deserve.
Sian Berry.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Secretary of State has given us some positive new spending plans today, but also really mixed messages for young people. Some investment on the one hand, new conditions, what she calls responsibilities on the other. So will the Secretary of State commit to really work with and empower young people to shape this new spending in local areas, potentially challenge any new conditions on support, particularly neurodiverse young people whose perspectives are vital and who are really worried what this will mean for their well-being and life chances?
The White Paper will include a new youth employment panel so that we genuinely engage with young people in developing our proposals. But let me say this, I really believe that it is vital that young people are in education, employment or training when they're young, because the impact that if they're not can be lifelong. Today's world, if you lack basic skills, is brutal. And if you are unemployed when you're young, that can have a lifelong impact on your future job prospects and earnings potential. So I do believe that alongside genuine new opportunities, there should be a responsibility to take them up. And you know what? I've never met a young person who doesn't want to work, who doesn't want to get skills, who doesn't want a chance. We will fulfil our side of the bargain and meet our responsibilities to provide those opportunities. And I believe, just as they did on the New Deal for Young People and the Future Jobs Fund, which the last Labour government set up, young people will take those chances up.
Sam Carling.
Madam Deputy Speaker, may I thank the Secretary of State for coming to set out these measures today around getting Britain working. And I'm also really pleased to see that Cambridge and Peterborough has been included as one of the areas for trailblazing in the Youth Guarantee. On Friday, I had a roundtable with local businesses, and one of the main things that was coming through from that was the lack of ability to recruit skilled people locally. So could the Secretary of State please outline how the measures she set forward today will help to address that situation?
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. I've already spoken quite a lot about changes to the apprenticeship levy, which I think are important. But there are many other things that we can do. We've seen real success with what's called sector-based work academies run by job centres. These are short 6-week courses giving the specific skills an employer needs alongside guaranteed work experience for the potential employee and a guaranteed interview. They have had a huge success for the person looking for work and for the employer because they get someone with the skills they actually need. We are committed to doing that this year, and I hope we will roll that out further. That's just one of many examples of how we can change our job centres and the DWP to better serve employers and their needs.
Lisa Smart.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Stepping Hill Hospital in Hazel Grove has a huge repairs backlog, reported at being £130 million. We've had buildings knocked down because they're no longer safe, medics wading through flooded corridors, and most recently a light fitting falling down in a delivery suite when the couple were in active labour. This has a massive impact on the waiting lists and consequently the amount that my residents can work, including Anthony from my area who got in touch yesterday, waiting for rehab post a heart attack in June. Can the Secretary of State confirm that any extra funding will go to what local communities need in order to get back to work. Many of my constituents are as keen as mustard, but they're on waiting lists, rather than the most wonderful work coach who can do very little when somebody's awaiting surgery.
The Honourable Lady raises a massively important point, and I'm really sorry about what her constituents are experiencing. We've got to get people back to health and back to work. I mean, it is no wonder that so many people are out of work due to long-term sickness when we've got waiting lists at near record levels. That's why my Right Honourable friend, the Health Secretary, is sending in extra help, including doctors, to drive down waiting lists in the areas that need help most. It is a no-brainer to me that you've got to get people off the waiting list to get them back to work. That's what I mean about a healthy nation and a healthy workforce being two sides of the same coin.
Jen Craft.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Thorough Lifestyle Solutions in my constituency are an excellent example of good practice in helping disabled people enter and stay in the workplace. They are particularly successful because they embody that maxim, nothing about us without us, run by, led by, designed by disabled people themselves. Will the Secretary of State commit to taking these kind of examples of best practice into consideration and ensuring the voices of disabled people and those with long-term health conditions are put at the very heart of this strategy?
Yes, and I think what she and many other honourable members today have highlighted is lots of individual examples of really good working, but we're not joining it up. It's not actually a central part of our employment system, when it absolutely should be. We know we need extra investment, and the Chancellor's put £240 million into this, but we are already spending money that we're not getting the most out of because it's not coordinated and joined up. That's what we mean by investment and reform together. If this is locally led with the right people involved who are doing all this fantastic work, we can make a really big difference.
Sammy Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, can I welcome this initiative from the government and recognise as well that this is not a problem which has been created by the government. This is one which has been with us for a long, long time and started long before July of this year. Northern Ireland has got the highest level of economic inactivity, despite the fact that I can think of many initiatives in my own constituency for people with learning difficulties, for apprenticeships in certain sectors, for the work of local colleges, etc. And yet, despite all of that, this problem persists. And that's in a case of full employment, practically. Can the Minister give us an assurance that despite the fact that we now have a budget which is going to make it more difficult to recruit, that she can set objectives for the number of people who she believes can be brought through from unemployment to work as a result of these initiatives?
The Right Honourable Gentleman raises so many important points there, and as I said earlier, it is absolutely the case that Northern Ireland has the highest levels of economic inactivity. We will be setting clear objectives for our plans as we work with the devolved administrations and with local levels to get the levels of economic inactivity down. This will be challenging because, as I said earlier, only 3% of people who are economically inactive actually get back to work each year. We need to increase that, and the only way we do it is by much more fully joining up work, health and skills support. I think too much of the focus of welfare reform over the past 14 years has been about the benefit system alone. The benefit system clearly can incentivise or disincentivise work, and we want it to incentivise work, but we also know it's all this other support, work, health and skills, that we need to join up if we're really going to get every part of the United Kingdom working again.
I think it might be helpful to say that this statement's going to run until 3 o'clock, so short questions, short answers would be very helpful. Andrew Lewin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It is a sad reality that there are fewer people in work today than in 2019 before the pandemic, so I'm under no illusions about the scale of the challenge. And when I talk to young people in Welwyn Hatfield, the thing that most concerns me is that they cite problems with their mental health so often as being a barrier to get into work or to progress in work, could my right honourable friend reassure me that she will work in lockstep with the Secretary of State for Health, because we on these benches understand that investment in a healthy workforce is a down payment on future prosperity for us all?
Yeah. In the interests of brevity, yes.
Ian Sollum.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. St Neots, in my constituency, is the largest town in Cambridgeshire. It does not have a job centre. Residents in St Neots have to travel up to Huntingdon to, each week for their benefits. Where that absence has been, social enterprise has taken place. I attended the launch of the St Neots Citizens Hub last week that aims to connect individuals with opportunities, employers with talent, and really provide a safe space in the heart of the community to address those fundamental issues of skills gaps, including life skills, social isolation, financial insecurity. It sounds like a great example towards that new model of job centre. But would she ensure that staff at the job centre in Huntingdon could come down for 1 day a week and ensure that residents don't have to keep making that journey up to Huntingdon? Thank you.
It's a really important point. I think we want to see more of our work coaches going out to where people are rather than always expecting them to come in. And if all of that help and support is being provided, it sounds like exactly the sort of places that our work coaches should be based, and I will certainly bring that up with them.
Amanda Martin.
Madam Deputy Speaker, these changes are fantastic and much needed in getting Britain back to work after 14 years of dismissal and neglect of real lives and real people under the last government. However, Madam Deputy Speaker, areas like Portsmouth don't have a devolution deal yet. So can the Secretary of State assure me and give details of how those not in work in Portsmouth North will be able to get support and get back into work, and how we can make our job centre accessible to lift the children out of poverty, to lift people back into the community?
I want to reassure my honourable friend it's the same for me in my city. We don't have a devolution deal. The overhaul of our job centres, the drive to tackle economic inactivity with local Get Britain working plans, and our youth guarantee, whether you're not part of a mayoral or combined authority, that will be led locally, including through the local council. We are determined to deliver in every corner of the country because we believe everybody deserves an opportunity to work, and that's also what our country needs to get growing again.
Richard Ford.
Madam Deputy Speaker, Stephen Tyso from East Devon used to be a police officer here in London in the Metropolitan Police. And he showed me footage of his involvement in the riots in London over a decade ago. He was severely injured. He was regarded by the DWP as disabled. Under the new right to work for disabled people, will she ensure that public servants who have been injured in the line of duty are not going to get hounded repeatedly by assessors?
I don't want to see people being hounded. I want them, if they are able to work, to get the support they need to do that. And I think that is the big challenge that we face. There are actually more disabled people working than ever before. But for many others, sometimes the conditions that they have may fluctuate. The world of work and the benefit system needs to understand that. I'm not interested in hounding people. I'm interested in providing that support. There should be conditions and responsibility within the system. That's been the case since the social security system was set up. But I really hope that that's not happening to his constituent, and if it is, maybe he could write to me and tell me more about it.
Sean Davis.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Those who can work should work, but so should the support services as well. I welcome the Secretary of State's statement that transforms the public service around this. And following in the work the Local Government Association did in terms of work local, many of the principles have been embraced. When I was the leader of the council in Telford and Wrekin, when we were driving down youth unemployment, we were expected to pay a data charge to the DWP to share data under the last Conservative government. Will the Secretary of State assure me that that will not happen under these plans to work local?
I will take that away and look at it. It seems to me to be completely the wrong approach to put barriers in the way of data sharing. If I look at some of the best innovations, I think particularly in Barnsley Council, where they have really shared the data between the health service, the job centre, DWP about the people who are facing barriers to work, what needs to happen to put them right. We've got to enable that to happen everywhere. I want to tear down those barriers, not put more up. So I will definitely take that issue away.
Jim Dixon.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I welcome the innovation and the energy in the White Paper? It will make a huge difference to people and businesses across the country. In relation to the very welcome 8 trailblazer schemes announced today, can the Secretary of State set out how young people in areas without mayoral combined authorities will see support, such as my residents in Dartford and across the Thames estuary, where we want to see the fair growth that the government is offering?
I 100% want young people and all his constituents in Dartford to have the same chances. As I said in my reply earlier, I don't have a combined authority in my city, so I am acutely aware of this issue. That will be for local councils to lead. They will be developing local Get Britain working plans. They will be the responsible and accountable body over our youth guarantee. We have to deliver this everywhere because talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. And that's what we all came into politics to change.
Andrew Pakes.
Speaker, this is a momentous white paper by a momentous Secretary of State. Yesterday I had the great privilege to take my honourable friend to Peterborough College to meet excellent businesses and apprentices doing brilliant work, such as EML, Baker Perkins, Taylor Rose and Codem and Gen Phoenix. Those businesses and learners are excelling in a system which has failed too many of our young people. Apprenticeships down, youth unemployment up in my city. Can my right honourable friend tell us how quickly we can get going on these new trailblazers?
I want to thank my honourable friend for an amazing visit yesterday, and I hope he passes on my thanks to Rachel at the local college and all the local businesses and apprentices. I agree with him. When the number of apprenticeship starts for young people dropped by 38% under the last government's apprenticeship levy, when in Peterborough more than 1,350 young people are claiming benefits, the majority not in work, we have to act swiftly, and we will. These programmes are starting immediately in the new year. I look forward to working with him and all those businesses and the college in Peterborough to put our plans into action, because we are determined to deliver.
Katrina Murray.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I want to draw the House's attention to my register of interest and the work that I did prior to entering this place. It is difficult enough for a disabled person to enter employment. It is even more difficult for a disabled person to remain in employment if the employers are not aware or are not accommodating to their disabilities and the reasonable adjustments that they might need. I asked my honourable friend that within the debate on this white paper, that the work of exemplar employers is picked up and is credited, that are a recognition of the work, of the value that disabled people can bring to all workplaces. And I would also invite her to come and meet my old team in the employability service within NHS Lanarkshire, who have worked not just with Project Search, but with disabled.
The issue she raises is so important, and Sir Charlie Mayfield, who will be running our Keep Britain Working Review, will indeed look at best practice, some great employers who really understand what needs to happen to help disabled people get work and stay in work. So I'm sure if she will write to me about that exemplar working, I will make sure he sees it.
Dr. Scott Arthur.
Madam Deputy Speaker, yesterday I was proud to host a reception from RNIB, and I heard that right across the UK, people with failing eyesight aren't getting the support they need either from the health service, from local authorities, or from their employer, and they're falling out of work because of this. So can this be addressed as part of the programme outlined today?
We will certainly speak to RNIB to make sure those points are included as we take our Get Britain Working white paper forward.
Blair McDougall.
If you, Madam Deputy Speaker, search the record of this place, you'll see the phrase "no child left behind" mentioned over and over again. But during the pandemic, children were left behind. They've been washing up on the shores of social work, of the police sometimes, and of childhood mental health services. And I know from visiting my job centre in Barrhead that they're now washing up in their shores as well. What will this white paper do to help that COVID generation who were left behind?
Very first thing my job centre manager in Leicester said to me when, after I was appointed to this role in opposition, when I visited, the first thing he said was about the big problem was young people, mental health problems, the COVID generation. They deserve more opportunities to earn and to learn. And the country has to do this, because for me this is the most concerning problem that we face, the rapid increase in young people not in education, training or employment. The youth guarantee, I think, is something we know we can deliver. We did it when we were last in government with the New Deal for Young People and the Future Job Funds. This is a version of that, facing the problems of today and tomorrow, to give that COVID, that pandemic generation, the chances and choices they need to build a better life.
Mark Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I start by welcoming the statement made today and the white paper? I think that she has confirmed that we are definitely the party of work. Now, there's so much good stuff in this statement, this white paper. Reforms to job centres, the youth guarantee, joined up health and job support, but I particularly welcome the talk of a right to work. I speak to disabled constituents in my constituency, Leeds South Western Morley, and they tell me that they are desperate to get into employment but can't find employers that meet their needs. So without knowing the specifics, what general assurances can she give those constituents that they will be able to find work under this white paper?
This government understands that the benefit system is important in whether it incentivises or disincentivises work, but we also have to address people's skills, their barriers to work, including for disabled people, the need to work much more closely with employers so they understand the benefits of keeping people in work or getting them back to work. This is a huge agenda, and the DWP has, I think, been too centralised and too siloed and not joining up all this support. Our work coaches are desperate to make this happen, and under these reform programmes, that's exactly what we'll do.
John Slinger.
Deputy Speaker, does my right honourable friend agree with me that supporting people into work, yes, through government action nationally and of course locally, is a very important part of being pro-business? And will she expand briefly on how the measures she's set out will benefit businesses of all sizes in my constituency of Rugby, and will she reassure them that this is the party that is not only the party of work, but also it is a pro-business party?
Businesses in Rugby and across the country, the thing that they will always say is that they are desperate to recruit people with the right skills. If you haven't got the right people, you're not going to be able to expand and thrive. This is a pro-business strategy to get Britain working again, so we get Britain growing again. My honourable friend, the Minister for Employment, says we are the HR department of the growth mission, and I hope businesses in Rugby will see that and work with us to make sure we get this right.
Paul Wall.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I warmly congratulate the Secretary of State on all her hard work in delivering this white paper today? It's a white paper that proves not only is hers a department for work, but Labour is the party of work. Whereas, judging from the sea of green opposite, the Tories are a party of slackers. I warmly welcome the fact that Greater Manchester is one of the trailblazer areas today. Could she say a little more about what she's most excited about in Andy Burnham's plans in Greater Manchester to help tackle this massive problem?
Greater Manchester is actually, under Andy Burnham's leadership, really pioneering some of the changes that we want to see. really fundamentally joining up work, health and skills support, commissioning new talking therapist services for people who are looking for work, having a new service where they're kind of brokering between people who need work and the employers, making sure employers get the staff they need, but also make the adjustments. We want to build on that and expand it because we are indeed the party of work. We believe work brings self-respect, dignity, control, as well as improving your living standards. That is something I'm very proud of, and I hope and believe these forms will deliver in every corner of this great nation, so we don't just invest in Great Britain, but in Great Britons, who are this country's greatest asset.
Can I thank the Secretary of State for her